cape.
Welcome Wargamers to the last day of Fyreslayers week. In today's video, we're going to talk about the various units that make up the bulk of the armies for this faction. And we're going to start that discussion with the Grim Wrath Berserkers. Now, this is technically a one-man unit. It is like more of a solo character rather than like a full, a 10-man block. But the reason I didn't include him in yesterday's video is that he has very clear reasons as to why he's not a Lord of the Lodge, why he's not a leadership role. And so we're going to dive into those right now. See, typically a Fyreslayer warrior, whether they're a Hearthguard Berserker or a Volkite Berserker, the lowest guy or the highest guy, they can only handle a few runes at a time. This is a lot of power, a lot of energy going through these things, and so there's sort of a hard cap that each warrior can only handle a few. However, there are some folks in this faction that can handle dozens, and that's dozens plural. Now, the Rune Masters have no idea. It's kind of like finding, an albino of a creature, right? It's kind of a genetic one-off where these just certain things in a population can handle way more than everyone else. Rune Masters don't know why they exist, what makes this possible, but they are happy to administer something called the Test of Wrath. If over the course of your time as a warrior in a Fyreslayer's army, and you show that no amount of runes and power is really kind of taking over or overwhelming you, you can take this Test of Wrath, and really what it is they just keep hammering runes into your body, pushing you to the limit. And a few things are going to happen, right? You're either going to reject it, meaning that you straight up die. You could go, they call it Urgold, like madness. So the kind we were talking about in the Urgold episode where people go ballistic and insane and craving this stuff, they become sort of subhuman, or I guess in this case sub-Duardin, with a madness for it. That can even, in bad cases, turn them against their brothers. Or it's noted that a Duardin can literally just burst into flames. There's so much energy, so much heat radiating off of them that they will literally catch fire. So those are all the negative things. However, if they do survive the Test of Wrath, they become a living wrecking ball. Kind of like an avatar of Grimnir, if you could imagine that, in terms of his power being made manifest on the table. And these guys are always doing one of two things: fighting or training to fight. There's nothing else that they offer this society. Like a lot of things in this society, the goal is find what you're good at and do it to the max with Urgold and power and things like that. Well, these guys, their strength is how much of this stuff they can handle. And so that is the goal. Push them to the max in that aspect. As you can imagine, this makes them very aggressive and powerful and hot-headed, which also means they are very much unfit to lead. So if they have any ranks, being like, say, a Rune Son, a Rune Master, or a leader of a large unit of, say, Volkite Berserkers, they're stripped of that rank, but in exchange they become like living pieces of destruction. And what I like is that in a lot of factions, this would be sort of like make them a pariah, right? They don't fit into our society because they're kind of off on their own. They're very single-minded. They remind us of the dangers of this substance and what it can do to us. But that's not really the case here. There's very much a reverence for what these guys are able to do. The reason the Test of Wrath is administered by a Rune Master is because it's part of their religious structure, right? It's an expression of that religious faith. It just so happens to be one that makes them truly horrific on the battlefield. Next up are the Volkite Berserkers. This is the most numerous and basic warrior you'll see. You see a ton of them on tabletop because they are very effective. And these are the things that lodges are made of. When we talk about Fyreslayers, it's a bunch of these guys. And they go to war, kicking, screaming. They usually have either twin axes or they wield an axe and a shield. But just like everything else that has a kind of a multi-purpose in this faction, their shield are also meant to be hurled at the enemy as sort of a missile attack, which is pretty fantastic. I love when defensive things are used in an offensive way. And as they charge into battle, their runes light up, they get extremely hot, radiate heat and fury and all the things that make this army awesome. And to be honest, that's all the lore there is for them, for being the largest portion of any given Fyreslayer lodge. Moving on to the Auric Hearthguard, these are one of the two elite posts that a Fyreslayer can attain. They are chosen to defend the lodge's Magma Vault, which is basically where they store all the Urgold. If you remember from the yesterday's episode, the Runefather holds the key to the Magma Vault. These guys are the guardians of it. So their job is part, obviously, warrior, but also part ceremonial. They're the keepers of their god's presence here on the mortal realms. And as such, they're given a very special weapon to do that, something that looks very much like a religious, like totem or something like that, and that is the Magma Pike. which basically is like a large halberd, but it has a cannon built inside of it, and this cannon specifically fires magma, molten rock, fired at the enemies, and it does it for a dual purpose. Obviously, to burn them, it can incinerate them and set people on fire just by contact. However, the other purpose is that it really affects large creatures in various ways. More so than doing straight damage, this rock cools very quickly and solidifies, and so when it shoots larger beasts, it will actually slow them down. Now, this is a huge deal for something like a faction that's very short, very hard to catch up to things, so it can slow down, say, magma droths to be able to catch them and ride them as mounts. So I love the dual purpose there. It's just straight damage, but it also has the ability to slow down your prey, which is just very practical. Like, a lot of these things are just very practical, and I enjoy that. And the last thing the Battle Tome notes is that these guys also go into battle and function as the guardians of the Rune Master, which makes sense in terms of being the guardian of basically Urgold, the vault that holds all the Urgold. It makes sense that the person with the most access, being the Rune Master, would also be someone who's of importance. And the last unit up is the Hearthguard Berserkers. Now, these function as the honor guard of every single launch. They are the first to rouse to battle whenever the Runefather blows the horn, kind of summoning all the troops to war. And they have a full armory of weapons that are designed to fight different types of foes, either big beasts, men, those kinds of things. And really their role is they are responsible for protecting the Runefather and Runesons in combat. To that end, each battle they take an oath to defend their lodge and their Runefather in this battle. Every single time they go to war, they take this oath. And they really see the Runefather as the representation of Grimnir. We talked before about how the Runefather takes the surname of Grimnir to kind of hold that authority in place, but these guys truly fight as if Grimnir is with them on the battlefield, and that's the seriousness of which they take this oath. And with that same ferocity is how they fight in the battlefield. Now, taking a step back, and let's take a look at this whole week. Why is this stuff important? Well, here's the thing. They don't have a lot of units. These were very brief reviews of all the units. In total, if you go to the GW site, there are 16 entries at the time of recording this for Fyreslayers, and that includes battle tomes, digital books, all that stuff. It's all up there. 16 entries. Their army roster is a testament to the army as a whole, right? It is small, practical, and everyone fills a role. All the necessary things in this army exist, but they're very practical about it. One person can do multiple things on the battlefield. Because this is a lean society, I'm also okay with it being a lean model range. And this whole thing lends itself to kind of narrative list building and play. Right, what are you going to have when you play a narrative-based list? You're going to have big blocks of Volkite Berserkers. Your Auric Hearthguard are going to stay back and shoot. Well, guess who else stays back? Your Rune Master. You're going to have a ton of heroes because those are so highly represented in the lore, but they're also a mainstay of this army. And it's going to function just like it does on a tabletop, like it does in the stories. Aggression, getting in there, doing lots of melee, grinding out your opponent, using the buffs that your heroes offer you to make your opponent really, and just punish them for any misstep. And for all those reasons, this is a truly incredible army with a very interesting backstory, with wonderful models to back it all up. And I personally have truly enjoyed learning more about the Fyreslayers. So friends, thank you so much for joining me this week. It was a lot of fun, and I look forward to seeing you in my next Age of Sigmar lore video. Thank you so much for watching, and happy wargaming.